Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. We're happy to have you here. I'm Reed Price, and with me today is Jim Firman, who is one of the founders of Better Age, which is a program that's designed to benefit individuals and organizations to help older adults make informed decisions and improve their well-being. We're going to talk with Jim in just a minute, but I want to start by acknowledging that Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island sponsors Something to Talk About. They offer independent living and assisted living and memory care up on Rolling Bay. They have day stay and respite care programs. And if you'd like to learn more or take a tour or enjoy a free meal, call Celia or Jamie, 206-594-1010, 206-594-1010. Also, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting and living on the ancestral homeland of the Suquamish people, the people of the clear salt water. The Suquamish have lived on the waters of the Salish since time immemorial, and we honor them and are learning from their stewardship. So Jim is the former, what were you, the president or the CEO of National Council on Aging?
Yes, both actually.
And
two titles, right?
And he is no longer doing that, but he's in the entrepreneurial world, I guess, using the skills that he learned before to help us do a better job of sort of self-assessment. And Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center is one of 10 senior centers in Washington State that was chosen as part of a pilot to work with Jim's team on this project, which we're going to talk about today. Thank you very much, Jim, for joining us.
It's my pleasure. I'm delighted to be here and to be working with Bainbridge Island Senior Center again. I've had the pleasure of working with Bainbridge Island and the Aging Mastery Program several years ago. And when we kicking up this new project and we said, who's our go-to innovation partner? We started with Bainbridge Island, and you have not disappointed at all.
Oh, thank you very much. So we're in this first couple months of a revamped assessment, and one of the things that's sort of wonderful about working with Jim and his colleagues is that they recognize that you need to keep iterating and innovating. One of our board members, Sue Coble-Bunn, helped us look at one of the first versions of the assessment that we just have been promoting in the last few weeks. And she took the assessment again last week and wrote me to say she was very impressed with the improvements and modifications that you've made to make it a more user-friendly product. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is we're talking about? What is this assessment that Better Age is offering?
So the goal of Better Age, it's a modest goal, is to help everybody in the world to age as well as possible. I'm 73 years old. I retired from a career in the nonprofit space, and I figured, I'm not ready to retire. So the basic idea, the concept is that everyone, all of us, want to age as well as possible, but it's not that easy to know how to do that because we're not necessarily measuring well-being holistically. And so the first thing we do is use 13 questions that are scientifically validated to say, how well are you doing on 12 dimensions of well-being, overall health, current quality of life, future quality of life, loneliness, community connection, mental health, positive emotions, negative emotions, and then we added a 13th question in terms of the amount of fun level in your life. So the first step is to get information both on an individual level, but then on a community level in terms of understanding how well people are doing. Then we ask questions about what's preventing you from living your best life. And those could be things that are sometimes technically called social determinants, things such as, do you have enough food, do you have money, housing, transportation, or it could be physical limitations. Are you able to do physical function? Are you homebound? Do you have hearing loss, vision loss, things like that? But then we ask other kinds of questions like, well, do you have internet access? Do you know how to use computers? Are you reluctant to ask for help when you need it? So we ask a series of questions, and then we provide, and this takes about 8 or 9 minutes. Actually, I think it's even closer to 7 or 8 in terms of some of the data we're seeing from the Bainbridge Island group. And then it gives you a report, which is increasingly personalized, and we're getting better and better at it, to help you understand how well you're doing, what help you with the areas you want to work on, but also areas that maybe we identified, but you haven't set our priorities for you as well. And then over time, we're going to get better and better. We have NIH grant now to help you actually drill down and take small steps to improve your health and well-being. So the goal overall is to provide information to individuals and to read and the program staff to understand what's happening at your level. And through this project, across the state and 10 communities.
Yeah, so we, for example, when we did this the first go round, I realized that among our community members, the 150 or so who answered about a year ago, maybe, um, a higher proportion relative to other senior centers across the country said that they were reluctant to ask for help, and a higher proportion relative to those other senior centers had challenges related to sleep. Sleep was not a program that we had actually done much work on. I know it's one of the topics in the Aging Mastery series, but we thought, okay, we better do a little bit more programming to meet this need. And we ought to think about ways that we can invite people to come to the center without having to specifically ask for help. So give them another reason to come so that they're here, so that the hurdle for looking for assistance is shorter. Or now Vicky's on this call. Vicky Browning was part of a program we did with youth from the high school to have young people help seniors with their tech problems. Well, that's a pretty good way to get over a barrier. Is what I'm really doing is meeting this young person, and my iPhone is the excuse rather than the problem. And I feel like that kind of thinking is the kind of thing that we can build on. So you have the 10 projects or 10
Yeah,
senior
well,
centers.
before you leave that, Reed, let me go a little deeper on because you struck that asking for help issue jumped at us across the country. Basically, it's about 1 in 5 older adults. So we had about 5,000 people through it. So we have over 5,000 now. But 1 in 5, and it's a little higher, 22%. I'm looking at your data right now, are saying that you're reluctant to ask for help when you need it. But what we're able to do then is say, well, how do people who are reluctant to ask for help compare to people who are not reluctant to ask for help? And what we're able to see from that is that people who are reluctant to ask for help aren't any different in terms of age, gender, education, any of the demographic variables. The only thing that's different is people who are reluctant to ask for help are doing 2 to 3 times worse on every dimension of well-being. And that's really powerful, I think, for 2 reasons. One, it shows the ability, a couple of things, that we probably couldn't draw conclusions from 100 people from your center, 150, but when you pool it with all of the centers and you get to a denominator of 5,000, it's much more possible to learn things. But what this says is 2 things. One, if you on an individual, if you at an individual level, if you know a person is reluctant to ask for help, and we're also saying, by the way, people who are reluctant to ask for help are also reporting they have more problems. So that you got to reach out to those people and help them. But it also suggests that the opportunity for public education, that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of dependency. In fact, it's a key to aging well. And I really believe that. And I'll give you my personal example. So I'm 73. I was one of those people who didn't like to ask for help. And at 72, I became a first-time principal investigator on an NIH grant. I'd never had a degree, but I'd never done research, serious research before. And I'm pretty okay, doing okay on the research, but I'm failing miserably on filling out the 30 different NIH compliance and reporting forms. And I always had that kind of a problem. So I spent, 2 hours trying to get to one darn form, and I could not complete it. It would not accept it. And finally, there's a note about a helpline. I call the helpline. I say, I'm 73 years old. I've never done this before. Please help. And guess what? They helped me. And I can't describe to you that it flipped a switch for me, because I'm a kind of guy, I just want to get stuff done. I don't, I'm at an age where I want to really get things done. So now wherever I go, I say, I'm 73 years old. I've never done this before. Please help me. And it was like, I don't always, so not only am I not reluctant to ask for help, I'm eager to ask for help, because I figure I can't get the thing done. I get the problem solved sooner. So that's an example of something that we're really interested in, using this information and seeing that they're insight, but then also explaining to people, here's where you're not doing well, but chance you may be able to improve significantly. So I think if we collectively can move the needle, that's 1 out of 5 older adults are in that bucket. We could have a big impact on a lot of lives all at once. So just an example.
That's a great example. Sheila Kerwin, do you have a question or comment? You need to unmute yourself, please.
I have an example too.
Oh, great.
It's very similar to that, Jim. But yeah, I was at a meeting, and I had always been perfect, so I didn't have to ask questions before that, and so I knew everything. But these people were sitting around a table, and they were talking about some kind of drug, and I didn't know what they're talking about. And somehow I opened my mouth and said, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" And they didn't laugh at me. That was always my fear, that somebody, if I would ask a question, somebody would laugh at me because it was a dumb question, right? And they didn't answer. They did not laugh at me. As a matter of fact, they told me what they were talking about, and I learned something. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, but so that's my story.
And it's a great example. One of the things that we're doing as the system evolves, not there yet, but it will be is when somebody says, they have a barrier or a challenge. Right now, the system gives you a really good fact sheet, but it's a fact sheet. It's not specific. It's not as personalized as it could be. But we just have this NIH funding, and we've just been experimenting now. If somebody says, for example, asking for help is a barrier, what we'll be able to do in a couple of months is say, oh, well, let's ask you a little bit more. Why are you reluctant to ask for help? I'm afraid, I don't want to be dependent. I don't think anybody will help me. And so the more we can probe, the more personalized the guidance can be. But so if you think about that, that's our goal, to be able to do this for each topic. And so that people come back to this on a regular basis as kind of a reliable, trusted guide, because we all need help. Nobody's done this before.
Well, and it's a great way to begin the conversation. I can think at the end of the assessment, if you are interested in taking it and you're living on Bainbridge Island, it's biseniorcenter.org/betterage. And it's also linked to from our biseniorcenter.org homepage website. But it ends at the end of the program, it ends with articles or information that will give you more context. And I could certainly see in a case like this where maybe a little 30-second video might be the solution of, yeah, here I had that problem. We could just hear what Jim just told us. And it's like, here's how you do it. You just say, I could use some help. You can claim that you're 73, or you can just say, I saw that you have help. please help me. And I think that those of us who are starting to get used to, asking Google might like to ask actual people for help as well.
Yeah, I'm excited about all of this, in part be able to work with, I don't know everybody, but Reed's a real innovator, a very creative guy, and he's been a contributor. Bainbridge Island was the first project in the state of Washington, and we got going about it, well over a year ago, a little over a year ago. And because of the initial success in Bainbridge Island, the Washington Department of Social and Health Services is supporting 10 projects around the state now. Our goal is to collectively screen at least 1,000 people and get data, and we're hoping to do significantly better. As of yesterday, we're at 501, so we're getting there. Bainbridge Island and Camino Island are the top producers so far, but we hope many more people will do it. Can I share another
Yes, please do.
interesting data point? So we just talked about asking for help, and the other part of that is asking to help, asking people to help. So we did another thing that we did. We've been collecting demographic information about employment and volunteering, actually, I think we made some of the changes based on Reed's comments about how to talk about retirement. But we used to ask a volunteer question: do you volunteer? Don't you volunteer? Yes, no. And then about 500 people ago, we changed. You gave people three choices. Yes, I volunteer. No, I don't volunteer, and I'm not interested in volunteering. And no, I don't volunteer, but I would consider it if asked. There's some interesting data, and I happen to have it here because I looked at some of your things from the data so far that's come in. And basically, a higher nationwide, 45% of people in our sample volunteer, but in Bainbridge Island, it's 66%. So you've got an actively engaged community, but you've got 11% that say no, they're not interested in volunteering, but you have 22%, more than 1 in 5, who say they would consider, they're not volunteering, but they would consider volunteering if asked. And that's across the country, 30%, but even on Bainbridge Island, it's 22%. Now, if you think of that same question, how does the well-being scores of people who volunteer compare to people who don't volunteer? And we said two things: people who don't volunteer, whether not interested in volunteering or they don't volunteer but would have asked, they're doing the same. There's no differences between them. But the people who actually do volunteer are doing significantly better on like 5 dimensions of well-being: meaning and purpose, having more fun, feeling more connected to community, et cetera. So the point here being that asking people to volunteer not only strengthens the community, it improves the well-being of the people who do the volunteering. And I think the difference is, as we get better, we're going to be able to show this to people. Here are your well-being scores, and how do they compare to a person like you who is volunteering when you're not? So I think, some of this stuff is things that make intuitive sense, but sometimes just exciting to have the data. And if you indulge me one more story about this, I want to talk about my Uncle Carl. I don't know if you've heard this story, Reed. So I had an uncle who recently passed away at 99 and 11 months of age. And he was from New York, but then he lived in California because his daughter was near there. He was in an assisted living facility. And I'd call him up every 2 months or so and say, Carl, and we would talk about baseball. We're both Mets fans. And it was just, it's a nice, special connection. And so I called him up about 6 months before he died. And I said, Carl, what's new? And he goes, really excited, very excited. Jimmy, good news. I got a job. And I go, what do you mean, Carl? He said, well, in this, in our residence here, there are only 3 of us who can walk. And my job now is in fire drills and earthquake drills to push the people out and move them around. And the joy in his voice from being able to volunteer to have meaning was really exciting. And I'm telling this story to a colleague, Reed may know from Massachusetts, who's also in the Better Age program. She said, we were doing a presentation. She said, oh, let me tell you about my Nana. And she said, Nana is 93 years old. She's in an assisted living in Boston. She hates it there. She calls her daughter, which is our colleague's mother, every night. She's calling them, I hate it here. Get me out of here. How could you abandon me? It was terrible. She was a real problem. She was not participating in activities. And then one day she was wandering around the facility and she goes into the activity room and she notices that some of the residents are decorating Halloween cookies. And she looks at them and she says, no, you're not doing it right. Let me show you. And it turned out she'd been a baker for 30 years and making cakes. So she took over the decorations of cookies for the facility, and it transformed her experience there. She started participating, etc. And all these stories just inspired me to realize that part of what we can do is help everybody connect to a way that they can make a contribution. And don't say, oh, they're homebound or they can't. No, everybody can contribute. And part of our job is to take that 35% of people in Bainbridge who are not volunteering and are not connecting and find ways that they can help. So,
Yeah, and I think that that it's, you probably have a finger on the data that shows how lack of connection has direct and quick impacts on overall health. It's as
yeah,
dangerous as smoking.
it is. And you mentioned Vicky's program. And intergenerational programs are wonderful. They're just actually did my dissertation in that area because they maybe get the reason may be instrumental, like how I'm helping you with tech, or an older person, talking about their life history or another period of time. But the magic is in the connection. So kudos to you, Ricky, for that kind of a program because
Well, Jim, if I could share my story,
please do.
it will tell you where I'm at because I really want to learn more about what I should be feeling as an 88-year-old when my daughters are telling me I should be feeling one way and I feel another way. But I worked until I was 70. I retired at 76. And what got me to retire was I was a leader in Rotary and still am. And as a part of a Rotary program, we got a challenge grant from the Gates Foundation to go into a facility that would keep people in their homes, not get them in a home, but keep them in a home. And it was a matching grant of $10,000. And then we needed to work with the group that would be the one that will facilitate the program. So we ended up with $20,000 and we indicated Helpline House. And what happened to me in that experience was I realized I could retire. Up until then, I thought, I'm just going to work till I drop. I love it. My job is such a natural for me. And besides, I don't know what else I would do. When I had that opportunity to go into Helpline and see what they do, I said, I can retire. And so I put in my notice at work that I wanted to retire before the end of the year. I didn't care if it was January or June or December, but I knew what I was going to do next, and I was going to start that in January. And I ended up retiring at the end of December in 2012. And in 2013, I began my 7-year career in volunteering many times a week at Helpline. And now I am no longer working there because they think I'm too old, but anyway, and standing for several hours is probably they're right. And so now I'm just working on their capital campaign and trying to raise money for their new facility. But while I'm doing that, I'm also president of our congregation, and I'm still very involved in Rotary. I had 3 meetings this week for Rotary. So I decided I needed to do something to try and challenge my brain. So I'm now getting active in in the senior center. And so they're teaching me to play bridge. And so
Yeah.
I just figured that that was something that I can do that would test it. But in the meantime, my daughters are real concerned that I don't know my limitations. And I know that they worry about me. And I know they would like me to be in a home where somebody would be there to watch over me. But I'm not sure they could keep up with me.
Right. Well, you're inspiring. And by the way, when you learn to play bridge, we can play bridge online. I have a game. I love to have an online bridge game I play with other people, but you're really, no, but this is, you're in a great example of the fact that some people are just kind of passing their time in this phase of life. And the only thing we all have for sure is today. We have the gift of today, and how we spend each day is so important. I was listening, Vicky, to a podcast today, and they were talking about the key question to ask yourself each morning and each night was, what am I going to do today to help another person in the morning? And then at night, what did I do today to help a person and make the world a little bit better? And I really do think that that's one of the keys to having as meaningful as possible life in this phase of life. So you're great, terrific exemplar of.
Well, I'm still worrying my daughters, though.
Yeah,
Well,
and I do
they're
think
almost old enough to take this themselves, and they can get them. But and it is natural for the kids to worry, but and then maybe there is a little bit of risk, but you're clearly thriving on your own, and I'm assuming you're not afraid to ask for help if you need it.
No, I've asked for help reluctantly.
Well, I do think that the one of the other parts of this that might help with you and your daughters is the idea of having a plan B or an agreement about when you see something that might put you at unease, that you will consider or be ready to take a step, like having somebody come in or work with somebody, or think about a co-housing situation where there's somebody closer. I don't know where your daughters are, but the idea of communicating about ways that we can be responsible about our own safety is, I think, one of the ways we can ensure that we have independence in as many ways as we can for as long as we can.
Well, I have a deposit just recently at Fieldstone.
There you go. Good.
So that's
what
plan B. That's
That's-
plan B.
Right.
That's
So
good plan.
then, and you can say, this, if I notice something, I'll be honest about it or whatever.
But
And I think
what's
that,
interesting about this, I wanted to be an anthropologist when I was in school, and I could never figure out anybody ever pay me to be an anthropologist. But now a lot of what we're doing is anthropology. How does each person live their life? How do they choose to spend their time? How do they deal with all the issues, the good and the bad? And each of us, is on a personal journey, but there was no curriculum, and we'd had all of these high school, junior high school, elementary school, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, all the religious groups to train us to be from young adults. And then we went to work, and then at some point had families or didn't and retired. But there's no curriculum on aging. None of us went to school on how to live as well as possible in this phase of life. And it's a phase of life that can be 30, 40 years for hopefully for some. So we're all learning together, and that's kind of the one of the values I hope will be participating in the Better Age experiences. Hopefully you'll get things out of yourself, but you're contributing to the broader knowledge about what works and what doesn't work, and how do we encourage and support people, and how does Reed know what classes to offer, et cetera. So we really hope you will encourage others to use this, and we'll continue to, I think our goal, once we can talk about more than 1,000 older adults in Washington State, which will be in a couple months, I think we'll have some powerful insights. And for me, like you, Vicky, this is just the beginning. And I'm hopefully on this for quite a while, and I hope to be as active and sharp as you are when I reach your age. And so, and part of that is staying active and engaged and every day.
So I want to remind people that you can take this survey online. That's the easiest way and the quickest way we get results. One of the advantages of the pilot is that Jim has, through grants from Department of Social and Health Services and elsewhere, we have some incentives. I think that if you take the survey right now, between now and June, they're doing drawings of $100 just as a little gift card opportunity. And also, if you do that, you also are putting some money towards the center. There's a incentive for us to have people sign up. So if you haven't taken the
I haven't taken it, but I will.
great. And if it's difficult to do it online, again, biseniorcenter.org/better age. We also have paper versions that we will manually enter in, and maybe Vicky will volunteer to enter them in.
Well, you know, that's a possibility.
Anyway, Jim, I want to thank you very much for sticking around here and talking to us and giving us an update. And we will share the results from our survey and assessment with our membership, and we'll put them to good use.
Great. Well, Sheila and Vicky, it was great to meet you. And Reed, thanks again for your leadership and your participation. Reed is an active member in the national community of organizations that are working on this as well. So it's great to be there. And I hope I'll be able to make a site visit to you guys soon.
Yes, well, I know you're going to be here in the area not too long from now, so I look forward to
right.
seeing you,
And
Jim.
I have a son and daughter-in-law in Seattle, so I'm looking for excuses to come
Well,
out.
it'd be nice to meet you in person.
Yeah, that'd be great. I look forward to that. Thanks again for your leadership and your participation, and we'll look forward to continuing to work together to measure and improve the health and well-being of everybody on Bainbridge Island.
And beyond. Thank you,
All
Jim,
right.
for helping
Thank
to
you.
build the curriculum you're talking about. And thank you, Marcy, for the thumbs up.
Thank you much.